The latest Pompey news, updates every day from the Pompey Sound news desk.
Tom Chappell of 4-0 written all over it writes this for the BBC. Saturday afternoon's defeat by Hull City means Pompey's wait for a second away win in the Championship this season will be 3 months at least. Adrian Sajec's winner at Oxford feels an awfully long time ago. According to folklore, if the first week in August is unusually warm, the coming winter will be snowy and long. In Pompey's case, this could not be closer to reality, a 7th league loss with a touch under a third of the season gone already. John Mousinho's side are not currently performing at the level required of them to maintain second-tier status. Our form is alarmingly poor, and there is a palpable immediacy to win a couple of games and go on a positive run, which is something that right now this team just does not look capable of. One man who did not deserve the outcome from Saturday was Terry Devlin, a gritty, passionate display and 2 goals to go with it. 2 generational knee slides in front of the travelling fans too, so disappointingly futile considering the outcome. Pompey were probably just about deserving of a point at a push, but you could not make an argument for anything more than that. Scoring 2 goals away from home has to yield more of a return than a defeat. We have got to be so much better at defending set plays and must attack with more of an intensity and purpose. Plenty to work on then for a group of players bereft of confidence, and a tough set of fixtures to tackle once Championship football resumes in 2 weeks.
You don't say, Sherlock. Really? We could be doing a little bit better. Really? When you score 2 goals away from home, it would be nice to come away with something. No shoot, Sherlock. No shoot. Now look, OK, we've been having some bad results. But that doesn't mean to say we have to start running around like headless chickens, criticising everybody and everything except one player who got on the score sheet twice. Apart from that, Terry Devlin didn't do anything special compared to the rest of the team. He didn't let himself become part of a defensive carbuncle, which cost us the 3rd goal. That is true. But apart from that, it was a solid performance by Devlin. He got on the end of 2 decent chances and buried them. The first one wasn't even a decent chance. It was going 3 feet wide, of course, before it hit a defender. But hey, turn a blind eye to that, shall we? Hey, it was Terry Devlin, and he gets to do a generational knee slide. Answers on a postcard, radiopompey@gmail.com. No, look, of course we want to start picking up some points. We are still better off than we were at this time last year, remember? And we survived with 2 games to spare. We've had 4 or 5, or arguably 6 or 7 of our first team first picks injured throughout the period that we've been on this poor run of partly form but mostly results. Wouldn't you have predicted that? Wouldn't you have said that the reason that we are going lose, draw, lose, draw is because over a half of our first team, our first picks for the starting 11 in an ideal lineup are unavailable? Would any side not stutter if they had to deal with that? And then Connor Ogilvie goes and gets pranged. A nasty challenge, apparently. I say a nasty challenge. I'm not accusing anybody of attempting to hurt him, but it was a solid challenge and it's put him out for the game for 10 to 12 weeks. And Ogilvie does not like lying around with his feet up. So this is where we sit. We're hoping for a number of players to come back on November the 22nd, but we still know that we will be without Shaughnessy, who is an absolute rock at the back, and Connor Ogilvie. Ditto. So that side of our defence is going to be vulnerable. Everybody we play is going to know that. What can we possibly do about it? Who's going to be available to sign now on a free transfer or during the January window? We don't know. We'll find out. It preferably needs to be sooner in the window, if it is a window job, than later, because we've got games coming up, stacking up. So you can be sure that everyone at Fratton Park behind the scenes is working much harder than casual fans like Tom Chappell of It's Got 4-0 written all over it, whatever that is, writing for the BBC, or us. We're working our socks off in our brains, hoping, we're doing hope. These guys are doing expectation. And we do expect. And they do hope.
As the boredom of the November international break kicks in, football fans up and down the country focus on matters off the pitch rather than on it, bearing the results of a recent survey in mind, which found that across the 4 divisions over 70% of football fans felt that their club should and could be doing better. The pre-Christmas stretch, always a source of anxiety for fans of clubs in the bottom half of their respective leagues, is a racing certainty to set the managerial merry-go-round starting. Club CEOs everywhere will be sitting down every morning at their emails, only to discover a burgeoning litany of emails from prospective managers opening with the dreaded words, "Allow me to introduce myself." It's a measure of the universal respect that John Messina has garnered in his short career as a head coach, that no other manager has had his name put forward in the press as a potential successor. It's clear to all concerned that the Eisners have a long-term plan and that John Messina is part of that plan.
That is, until Gary O'Neill said what he's just had to say, which is that one day he would very much like to be the Pompey manager. Now, he is clear in that he means one day, and when he says one day, and that means a good deal further down the road. In other words, he is not trying to knock John Messina off his perch. He's far too professional, and also, I suspect, far too astute, clever, diplomatic, political. He knows the way the corridors of football offices function, and he knows that were he to suggest something like that, it would simply be seen as an indiscretion. That's not to say that he hasn't sent off one of those emails that we were just hearing about, because Andy Cullen will be getting them. He'll have already had one from Sol Campbell. Dear Sol. 3 weeks into John Messina's tenure, no doubt. Sol Campbell wants a job somewhere towards the top end of English football. And we don't know the ins and outs, but it doesn't seem very likely to happen. But apparently that doesn't stop him sending off letters. And when he doesn't get the job, carping a bit about it, which again isn't clever. So Gary O'Neill has said one day he'd like the Pompey job. He reminds people that he was a bit of a folk hero when he was at Fratton Park, well over 100 games, and he was very popular with the fans. That doesn't mean to say he'd make a great manager. He's had a little go here and there at management. He hasn't pulled up any trees as yet, but it can take time for one to get into one's stride as a manager, something that John Messina didn't need, to his eternal credit. Gareth Southgate is available. We've been looking up managers who are available, just so you know who Andy Cullen might or might not have been getting emails from. Gareth Southgate, he doesn't need the money, but he'd probably like to have a little challenge, wouldn't he? Go out on a high. Eric Ten Hag, remember him? Nobody's picked him up. Oh, how about Ange Postecoglou? Do we fancy Ange Postecoglou? In a way, a funny old way, I think we do a little bit. I mean, this is assuming not that John Messina is sacked, because that's not going to happen, not in a month of Sundays. But assuming he decided to give it all up and become a corporate lawyer, which was apparently one of his game plans before football beckoned, then we would need a new manager. So I think Ange Postecoglou would be right up there. He'd be the bookies' favourite at 7-1. Because he's got plenty of competition. Did you know that Sam Allardyce is still touting himself? Apparently, I think he's 73 now, but that sort of age is no impediment any longer as a football manager. Has Andy Cullen had an email which went like this? Dear Mr. Cullen, allow me to introduce myself. My name is Ruud van Nistelrooy. You may have heard of me. Chris Huyton. He never scaled the heights that a lot of people thought he would. Remember Chris Huyton? But is still available. Michael Carrick, of course, is also available. But that wouldn't work, would it? But has he sent a letter to Andrew Cullen? I wouldn't be at all surprised, or at least his people have. Now, another interesting one is Brendan Rodgers. He's available. Would we want Brendan? So nearly won the Premier League, didn't he? Was it that one little slip by Steven Gerrard? And it just changes everything. Talk about a sliding doors moment. Oh, the list is endless. I won't go on. Lauren Blank. Patrick Vieira. Dear Mr. Cullen, allow me to introduce myself. My name is Patrick Vieira. You may have heard of me. And of course, Andrew Cullen has to be extremely discreet with all these applications, because he might be getting applications from people who are holding down at the moment good management jobs but are looking to better themselves. So he's got to be very discreet. There's no way that he can, over a pint, say, "Oh, tell you I had an email from yesterday." He's too professional to do that, and quite right too. So there's just a little overview of how things are at so many football clubs up and down the country. And, with Pompey where they are at this exact moment in time and having been through a bad patch, you would expect there to have been a pile of emails on Andrew Cullen's machine. And there probably are. But he's started a little file for them, and he hasn't filed the whole thing under pending at all.
Pompey scored 2 stoppage-time goals to dramatically snatch WSL2 victory from the jaws of defeat at Sunderland. Meg Hornby had earlier cancelled out Emily Scarr's opener for the home side during a first half that saw the Blues create plenty of chances, but they looked to be making the long trip home from the northeast, with nothing after Scarr capitalised on some poor defending to net again. The Blues kept fighting, however, and Jessie Gale came off the bench to score for a second match in succession before Hornby grabbed the winner. Jay Sadler, unsurprisingly, stuck with the same side that beat Crystal Palace on home soil the previous week. After a minute's silence to mark Remembrance Sunday, it was the home side who were first to threaten in the opening seconds. Tara O'Hanlon sent a ball down the line for Eleanor Dale, and after her centre was cleared, Scarr shot tamely into the side netting. But the Blues soon started to apply pressure, and Angelina Nixon breezed past a couple of challenges before firing narrowly over. Some neat play from Hornby and Nixon then provided an opportunity for Georgie Freeland to test the handling of Grace Maloney. And Sophie Barker soon won possession in the middle of the pitch, threading a pass through for Hornby to send a low shot inches past the post. But when the hosts were first to a long Jess Gray kick up the pitch, the keeper had to make a smart stop to deny Katie Kitching, who was sent racing clear. They did go ahead on 25 minutes, as Scarr was left with a simple close-range finish, after Gray was unable to hold Kitching's low drive. The Blues were still looking dangerous though, and grabbed a thoroughly deserved equaliser on 30 minutes. Barker capitalised on a loose pass and found Hornby, who advanced into the box and smashed a shot that caught out Maloney at her near post. Hornby then thought she should have been awarded a penalty after going down under pressure from O'Hanlon, but referee Ruby Sykes ignored her appeals. The visitors were left breathing a sigh of relief just before the break, however, as O'Hanlon's corner dipped onto the post before Rhiannon Roberts' follow-up attempt was saved by Gray. Hornby did have an attempt at the other end of the pitch before the whistle blew, although her curler was comfortably held by Maloney. Half-time Sunderland 1 Pompey 1. The Blues were put under pressure immediately following the restart, although a fine crunching challenge from Hannah Cohen denied Dale. Scarr then sent in a teasing delivery from the left that Katie Watson could not quite make a connection with at the back post. Pompey were struggling to get up the pitch, and it took a brave block from Cohen to once again leave Dale frustrated. Sadler made a switch on the hour mark, as last weekend's match-winning hero Gale replaced Nixon up front, and the substitutes soon teed up Hornby to spin sharply inside the area and fire a shot narrowly off target. Their roles were reversed soon after, as Hornby's ball into the mixer was met by Gale, only to Maloney to make a superb save from point-blank range. Ella Rutherford came on for Barker on 77 minutes, as Sider looked to add some fresh legs to his midfield. It was Sunderland who restored their advantage moments later though, after Annie Wilding's clearance flew straight to Kitching. She squared for Dale, who made a mess of what looked a simple finish, but recovered to find Scarr to fire home. The visitors were furious, believing that a handball in the build-up had been missed by the officials, and Barker's protests from the bench earned her a red card. Pompey immediately set about looking for another leveller, and Freeland's effort was scrambled behind by Maloney. A series of stoppages throughout the second half meant there were 11 minutes added, and a goal arrived in the third of them. Cohen sent a long ball up the pitch for Hornby on the left, and she delivered a low cross for Gale to poke home from close range. But it soon got even better for the Blues, as Rutherford and Ava Rowbotham combined to find Hornby, who neatly slotted the ball home to complete a remarkable turnaround.
So that's 2 out of 2, the last 2 for the women. Nobody's bettered that in the whole league. Well, they can't, can they? So we're up there with the best at the moment on recent form. But we're still lying only ninth, although we are a good few points clear of the teams that are 11th and 12th, who are Crystal Palace and Ipswich. We're not safe yet. There's a long way to go, but it looks as though they're starting to get points. Doesn't matter how well you play, as long as you score more goals than the other team. And they're starting to do that, which is excellent, professional. However, the next game is Birmingham, and Birmingham are lying third with the game in hand over Bristol City, who are second. So they are to be reckoned with. And we'll keep an eye on that game, which I believe is being played in about a week's time.